We are carrying on with another amazing serial entrepreneur, Dennis Crowley. Dennis, our friend, is the co-founder and executive chairman of Foursquare, the technology company that powers location experience for more than 1 billion people around the world. Location experiences. Dennis had a deep insight into the future of technology, and not only has, of course. And I look forward to hearing what's next at Foursquare in this conversation with DLD Chairman, friend, Chairman Yossi Vardi. Please jump right in.
Hi, Dennis.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey,
good to see you all.
Nice
Hi,
cap.
Dennis. Very nice to see you.
Thank you. A Foursquare hat.
Cool.
Dennis, at what year you started Foursquare?
2009, about 12 years ago.
And did you ever believe that you will get to 1 billion users?
No, well, it's interesting because, back in the day, we used to be a consumer app, right? And the consumer apps, we had, tens of millions of users. I think we topped out around 50 million users. But what happened over the last, call it a dozen years, is we focused the business on a lot of our tools and technology, specifically developer tools, so we can help other companies make great location experiences. And those have a much wider reach than we would ever have with our own consumer apps. It turns out it's a pretty good business too.
Yeah, I think, Dennis, that in general, everyone who is able to harness the developer community to his platform by offering them tools and ways to empower their offer is benefiting from creating a tsunami of applications, etc., etc. How many developers you would say are now using your tools, if it's not confidential?
To be honest, I don't even know off the top of my head. The thing is that Foursquare now in 2021, we provide analytics tools, we provide advertising tools, we provide data visualization tools, we provide, APIs that allow people to access, our 100 million points of interest around the world. We provide an SDK that gives contextual awareness to apps so that apps can understand, do they walk into a gym or into a butcher shop or a bar or restaurant. So it's hard to fully grok the entire developer system because there's just so many people using so many of the tools in so many different ways. But what you were saying about the developer ecosystem in general, I think one of the key insights that we as a company had going back to 2011, 2012 was that, it used to be like, oh, Google and Apple will just make everything and everyone else will use what they make. And there was a period where there was a whole bunch of companies realizing well, actually, we're making stuff that no one else is ever going to make. Like that makes us not just a consumer company, it makes us an enterprise and a developer ecosystem type of company. And, that's obvious now, but that wasn't obvious 10 years ago. And I think, having that core insight and following through with it is one of the reasons that we're still a dominant company today.
Yeah, let me go back to this platform thing. Today, everybody understands that you have to collaborate and to empower others in order to be empowered yourself. But when you started your offering and when I started some of the companies I invested in, it was not clear. It was like anti-intuitive.
Yeah.
Why should I take my property and give it free of charge to other people to use?
Yeah.
And, I think we wasted maybe the industry 10 years trying to figure a business model, how to charge, and you cannot charge, but by doing it, you create a more attractive offering. Can you give a short pitch to the guy who has a possibility to offer his offering to developers, but is still doubtful whether or not he should do it? Why should he do it?
Oh, make developer tools for their company?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just it's a totally different type of business, right? And it's potentially much more lucrative. Chasing the consumer's attention is a really, really hard game. We did this. I did this with my first company with Dodgeball, and Foursquare did it with the Foursquare City Guide app, and then we launched the Swarm app. But eventually you end up competing with the likes of Instagram and Snapchat, and there's only a finite number of things that really capture people's attention, and then of those, there's even a smaller number of them that reach just incredible scale that allows that to operate as the primary business. And I think one of the things that we're fortunate to have found is that in addition to pursuing our passion in building things for consumers, and also, building things for developers so that they can build things for consumers, we've been able to turn that into a fairly lucrative business for Foursquare that does, well over $100 million in revenue a year. There's a reason that I think a lot of people are chasing enterprise dollars these days, because there's more of them, and there's a lot of untapped opportunity, rebuilding old infrastructure, building tools that have aged. And in a lot of ways, it's a little bit easier than chasing the dream of having 1 billion people use your consumer app.
So you say that you estimate the number of locations about in the order of magnitude of 100 million places. And I'm sure that a good executive, each and every one of these locations, all the 100 million of them. How these locations were affected by the corona? I can assume that hospitals became very popular.
Yeah,
what happened in the space?
It's a great question. One of the things that I run the R&D team at Foursquare. It's called Foursquare Labs. It's a small R&D team. We just try to push the limits of what we can do with the tools and technology. And one of the things that my team spent a lot of time on this past summer was taking all of the foot traffic data that Foursquare has and making it accessible to crisis response teams across the US and when we could around the world. And this is less about like, are there a lot of people in hospitals right now, right? It was more, being able to work with city officials, local government officials, and helping them understand that, for example, when they said, hey, we need to close the beaches down because we think the virus is spreading through a closed contract on beaches, that Foursquare could help them understand, if you made this proclamation, if you made this order, did people actually follow it? Did the foot traffic go down 20% or not? Are people staying away from those places? Are people following the shelter-in-place orders? In which districts, in which counties, in which cities are people adhering to these guidelines and not? And in which types of places need to have specific more specific instructions. For example, we were helping New York City understand, are people still going to the playgrounds even though they're not supposed to? And does there need to be specific language around, hey, we really need you to stay away from the playgrounds? This was stuff from last summer, but this is some of the stuff that the R&D team has been working on really all of last year. Sharing it privately with companies, sharing it with government officials and crisis response teams, and then trying to get it in consumers' hands. If you walk around New York City today, you're likely to see a whole bunch of digital billboards that are really owned by a company called Intersection. But on those digital billboards, you'll see Foursquare data. Like, hey, these are the safest times to go to grocery stores. These are the safest times to go to pharmacies, all based off of Foursquare foot traffic data. So we've been, very busy trying to figure out how can we put our data and technology assets to use, to just make things a little bit easier or make things a little bit safer.
In which cities, which countries you are collecting footstep data?
We do it all around the world. One of the beauties of Foursquare 2021 is that, entirely a global company. We have different offerings around the world. And one of the core, magic tricks of the company is that we understand where hundreds of millions of devices are going. And we can use that to kind of make these predictions about, here's where people have been, here's where people are going, here's where people used to go but don't go anymore. I think our data is strongest in the US, and we've been a lot of our connections are strongest in the US as well. So most of that data has been put to use across the United States, but we've certainly been working with companies and countries around the world to try to share as much as we have.
So the company is now about 12 years old. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the company goes in the next 10 years, and where Dennis Crowley is going in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I still think Foursquare was early, right? Even though we've been doing this for 12 years. the idea of location technology and the idea that your phone understands, the types of places that you go to and therefore the types of things you might be interested in, that's still a relatively new idea. I think people are still just getting used to the idea that, you might talk to Siri or Google Assistant or Alexa multiple times during the day. And those virtual assistants, like they don't know anything about what you do outside of your home, right? And yeah, will they? Of course they will, right? And those are the types of things that we think about, right? What does software look like that changes the way that people interact with cities? How can we build things that make people, walking down the street have a slightly different experience? Like, go into this place, look up, look down, pay attention to what's over here. Our friend is a couple blocks away. Like, this is the core of what you can do with location technology and contextual aware technology. And very few people are scratching the surface of this. And I think it's just going to be a really super interesting space, especially as we all get out of lockdown and people are going to be excited to get back out in the world again. Might not be to the end of the year, might be sometime middle of next year, who knows, right? But yeah, we do know, actually we do know. But I can tell you people aren't going to be sitting inside doing Zoom all day, for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I should have asked you ahead of time to prepare for the following question. In Israel, we had this closure and it was removed yesterday. And the question, if you see a peak or increase in the foot traffic and to what extent, I think this sort of data will be very, very interesting. Maybe you should consider publishing it, just in a general way to see the trends. And the very interesting situation is, of course, around schools. I think that right now schools, kindergarten, etc., are the subject of very lot of curiosity. What's going on there?
Well, Foursquare has made a lot of this data accessible to folks. There's two websites I should call out. The first is one called visitdata.org, and that is Foursquare's foot traffic data. But it's there's a whole bunch of dashboards that allow you to go through and select, like, hey, I need to see what's happening in this county in New York versus this county. All freely accessible. Anyone can use it. It's all at visitdata.org. And it's our data, but that website was put together by a team of volunteer technologists. And then there's another website that's actually on Foursquare's website called the Foursquare Recovery Index, and it's foursquare.com/recovery index. And it will show you what's going on in the US, state by state, county by county, in some cases, neighborhood by neighborhood. Are there more or less people going to grocery stores? Are there more or less people going to parks? Are there more or less people going to bars, going out to eat? Right. That's one of the things that's going on. I'm in New York City right now, and indoor dining just opened up again in New York. And so we can take a look at our data through that dashboard, the Foursquare Recovery Index, and see, did it go up 5%? Did it go up 20%? And so, just sharing that data is, it's been helpful to local officials, it's been helpful to advertisers, it's been helpful to, urban planners trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, very good. I think it is essential for running a smart city. No doubt whatsoever. Personally, what are your plans?
Well, I'm at Foursquare HQ right now. I'm one of the only employees that come in the office because there's not a soul here. It's rough. I got two little kids at home, so I try to leave home so I can actually get some work done. And I'm fortunate to be able to use the space. Foursquare has so much interesting tools and so many interesting tools and technology. And so the R&D team that I work on tries to put those to use in new and interesting ways. One of the projects that we've been really excited about is this idea of, creating an audio walking assistant. The idea that you would just put Airpods in your ears and walk around, and then this thing will tell you about the things that you are walking around, right? It's like a city guide that you don't have to use. It's like a version of Alexa that talks to you instead of you having to summon it. It's called Marsbot for Airpods. You can download it in the iTunes and the Apple Store. It's only for iPhone right now. But just building those types of things, they're again meant to change the way that that people use cities and experience with cities. And so,
let me mention the P word. What about privacy?
Oh, yeah. I was like, what's the P word? Of course, privacy. One of the things, it's one of the things we think a lot about as a company here, right? Like this idea that, we have lots of location data, and it's our job to put that to use to make amazing things. So, everything's opt-in. If people want to opt out, they can opt out. If people want to delete all their data, they can delete all their data. We try to be the industry leaders here in terms of the way that we craft our opt-in language and the way that we craft our opt-out language, and just trying to make it super transparent to people. I think there's unfortunately in the location technology space, there's a lot of bad actors that are just trying to collect data without being clear what they're collecting or what the use is. And even though Foursquare is collecting a lot of this data, well, first of all, we make sure that we're giving back value. Like if we're going to collect your data, we want to be able to provide you with some kind of magical experience that changes the way that you experience the world. And then just be super transparent about how we're using it, so that if people are not comfortable with it, you can decide, hey, I don't want this and I want to delete it. And I think that, we try to set the best practices for other people to follow.
And how you coexist with Google Maps and the other gorillas in the space?
Yeah, that's also a great question. When we started 10, 12 years ago, the thinking was like, who are you guys to think that you can outdo, Google or Apple or Facebook, in terms of building technology? And, one of the things that we got busy building was building the things that we didn't think Google or Apple were going to build, right? Google Maps is a fantastic product, and we use it every day, right? The map tiles itself. But in many ways, we think our POI database is stronger. In many ways, we think our contextual awareness engine is much stronger. And one of the things that we find from talking to companies all the time is that there's plenty of companies that do not want to rely on using Google's technology, that do not want to rely on using Apple's technology. Like in lots of ways, Google and Apple compete with a lot of the companies who we power with location technology. And they want to deal with an independent company as opposed to being tied to one of their competitors. And that is that's a lucrative and valuable market for us to play in.
Let me ask you about integration of your properties with other technologies. Are you doing anything with robots, with flying devices, or?
Not yet, right? We do play a lot in the augmented reality space, right? For augmented reality applications to work, those apps need to understand, like, am I inside of a store? Am I inside of a restaurant? Am I inside of an airport? Like that's something that Foursquare technology is really good at helping with. Like we talk to a lot of car companies, specifically as the screens in the cars are becoming more valuable. One of the things I like to talk to car companies about is like, hey, it's very easy to put dots on a map as you're driving around. But like, what happens when the car stops and you pull into a parking lot? Why doesn't the car wake up and say, whoa, you're here? Here's 3 things that you should do. This is interesting, right? Like people don't think about cars that way, but why don't they? Those are fun conversations for us to have, to take the very specific way that Foursquare looks at the world and what technology can do to help you experience the world in a different way. And how do we weasel our technology into all of these different applications to help make other people make their products stronger. And that's a fun part of the Foursquare job and a fun part of the Foursquare ecosystem.
I think I know why this lady came on screen. Dennis, I want to thank you very much. It's very interesting. No doubt that location-based services grew to a monster that none of us even dreamed that it will become so prominent in our life. Thank you for coming again to DLD, and we hope to see you very soon in another DLD somewhere on the globe. And I'm curious to see what kind of ranking you give to DLD when the conference take place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right
Hey,
you are. Right you are. Hi, Dennis.
I'd love to come back.
Come back.
Well,
I think, Dennis, we looked it up. I think it's your 10th year DLD anniversary. So you've been on
really?
DLD
Yeah.
stage for the first time, I think, in 2011. Back
But
then you were on stage with...
It doesn't change.
Pardon me?
It doesn't change. You have to get a little bit older, Dennis.
I'll get a haircut before I come out, right? No, DLD has consistently been one of the most fun events. It's always a thing you make room for in your calendar. It's always such great people. So would love to come back and visit you. And it's been great to reconnect with you here. So.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic to have you. Thanks so much for these insights. And it's great to see Foursquare's influence on AI technologies and on voice assistants and how you're shaping the trajectory of voice assistants in the whole industry. I think next up, like 2 sessions, is Oliver Zipse, the CEO of BMW. And since you were talking about the car companies, we should connect you. Although we are not in one place, you should talk to each other, I think.
I want to make a plug here. Again, for DLD, like 4 years ago, when the CTO of, the CEO of BMW, the CEO of Intel, and the CEO of Mobileye was in a panel, and 6 weeks later, Intel bought Mobileye. You remember it?
True.
Yeah.
It was 3 years ago. So then you should be on the panel with the CEO of BMW. Who knows what will come out?
Hey, listen,
Exactly.
I'm just sitting in this empty office. So if you need me, you know where to find me.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Great. Good to see you all again.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Ciao, ciao.